The room fell silent as Professor Kress entered, her elongated, crystalline limbs glinting under the sterile glow of the Academy's lights. Her reputation had preceded her, an unparalleled linguist from the Zolari species, who not only spoke all 217 known galactic languages but had also pioneered 6 more. To her, humans were a primitive curiosity, barely worthy of interstellar recognition. As her faceted eyes scanned the room, her disdain was palpable. "You may call me Professor Kress," she said, her voice a harmonic blend of tones, layered and resonant. "I've been tasked with an ambitious, if not futile, goal, teaching humans the languages of the galaxy. A task akin to teaching fire to burn underwater." The students exchanged uneasy glances. Among them was Dr. Elise Carter, a linguist herself, seated near the front with a calm but focused expression. She had read every galactic lexicon available to humans and was here not out of hubris, but determination. Elise knew humanity had a steep hill to climb, but she believed their adaptability was an edge the galaxy hadn't yet seen. Kress activated a holographic display, filling the room with shifting symbols and alien phonetics. The characters danced and interlocked, creating sequences that defied human logic. "This," Kress continued, "is the script of Alvaran Prime. It is the simplest of galactic languages. Its syntax shifts based on the speaker's emotional state, requiring simultaneous mastery of vocal tone and contextual inference. It took my people a century to achieve fluency. For you, let us hope for competency within a decade." She turned, her crystalline fingers slicing through the air. "Let us begin." The symbols morphed into a single phrase, glowing in a vibrant shade of green. "Translate this," she commanded, her voice sharp, challenging. The students hesitated, their neural implants humming as they accessed translation databases. Elise, however, leaned forward, her mind racing. She recognized patterns in the shifting characters, their structure reminiscent of Earth's own tonal languages. "It means knowledge blooms in stillness," Elise said, her voice steady. Kress froze mid-step, her eyes narrowing. "Correct," she admitted, her tone begrudging. "But do not mistake a single spark for the ignition of a flame." Encouraged by Elise's response, the other students began to engage, their confidence growing. They broke down symbols, shared interpretations, and pieced together the linguistic puzzles Kress threw at them. Hours passed, and what began as a fragmented, hesitant effort became a surprisingly cohesive flow of ideas. Kress watched with concealed irritation. Humans lack precision, yes, but their improvisation was unsettlingly effective. It wasn't mastery, it was something else, something unpredictable. By the end of the session, Elise stood and addressed Kress directly. "We're faster than you expected, aren't we?" The professor's crystalline form stiffened, her refracted light dimming. "You mistake mimicry for understanding," she replied coldly. "True mastery lies far beyond your grasp." Elise's lips curled into a confident smile. "Then give us a real challenge." Kress's multifaceted eyes sparkled with a dangerous glint. "Very well. Let us see how far you can fall." As the students filed out, Elise's resolve hardened. Humanity's future wasn't just about survival, it was about proving they belonged among the stars. And she intended to lead the way. The classroom buzzed with muted tension as Professor Kress stepped to the center, her shimmering form casting prismatic shadows across the room. The challenge, issued the previous day, hung in the air like a storm waiting to break. "You wish for a true test?" Kress began, her voice laced with amusement. "Then you shall have one. Behold Ar-zen." A holographic display flickered to life, revealing a chaotic lattice of symbols that pulsed and shifted in ways that defied conventional logic. Ar-zen was infamous, a language spoken by the Rishkran, a species with 7 vocal cords capable of producing simultaneous harmonics. Its syntax wasn't linear but recursive, each sentence folding into itself like an endless loop. "This language," Kress said with a sharp tilt of her head, "is considered the pinnacle of linguistic complexity. It is not merely a code to be deciphered, but an art that requires absolute harmony between mind, voice, and intuition. Even among the galactic elite, fluency is rare. I expect failure, but at least it will be educational." The students exchanged uneasy glances, their earlier confidence shaken. All except Elise. She leaned forward, her pen poised over her tablet. Let's get started. Cress raised a crystalline limb, and the display morphed into the first sentence, a series of spiraling symbols accompanied by an alien hum. Translate this. You may use any tools you wish, though they will be of little help. The class dove in, the neural implants struggling to process the recursive structure. Elise, however, approached it differently. She noticed patterns in the symbols, connections that hinted at a deeper logic. It wasn't just about syntax, it was about flow. She began sketching out her observations, connecting ideas with lines and arrows. We're thinking too rigidly, she said, her voice cutting through the murmurs. This isn't about translating word for word. It's about context and intention. Look at how the symbols mimic wave patterns, it's almost musical. The room quieted as the students shifted their approach, following Elise's lead. They began experimenting, using trial and error to recreate the tonal patterns. Slowly, progress emerged. Fragments of meaning appeared, then entire phrases. Cress observed from the corner of the room, her faceted eyes narrowing. She couldn't deny the humans' progress, but it irked her. Their methods were chaotic, undisciplined. They lacked the elegance and precision of a true linguist. Hours passed, and by the end of the session, Elise stood before the class, her tablet glowing with a rough but functional translation of the sentence. She looked directly at Cress. It means, the sky sings when the stars align. Cress tilted her head, the light within her crystalline form dimming momentarily. Adequate, she said, though the word tasted bitter. But mere adequacy will not suffice. If you wish to continue this charade, we shall see how you fare under true pressure. Elise met her gaze, unflinching. Bring it on. For the first time in decades, Cress felt a flicker of doubt. These humans, with their chaotic minds and insatiable determination, were more resilient than she had anticipated. As the session ended, Elise gathered her notes and left the room, her mind racing. Ar-zen wasn't just a challenge, it was an opportunity. And she would prove that humanity could rise to meet it. The towering chamber of the Galactic court shimmered with authority. Rows of alien dignitaries filled the amphitheater, their forms varied and striking, serpentine Vixorians with glittering scales, translucent Cytherans whose internal bioluminescence pulsed in rhythm with their thoughts, and hulking Varnak warriors adorned in ceremonial armor. At the center of it all stood Elise Carter, flanked by her team of human students, under the relentless gaze of Professor Cress. "This is highly irregular," muttered an Uctory judge, its voice a series of clicks and hisses. "Humans are untested in matters of linguistic sophistication." "It is not irregular," Cress interjected, her crystalline limbs refracting the courtroom's light into sharp angles. "It is necessary. They must be made to understand their limitations." Elise stepped forward, her heart pounding but her face calm. "Or perhaps," she said evenly, "this is a chance to prove how far humanity has come." The challenge was clear, a live demonstration of linguistic proficiency in the galaxy's most complex tongues. Each judge had prepared a language test designed to overwhelm the participants, including real-time translation, cultural nuance interpretation, and contextual understanding of idiomatic phrases. "Begin," commanded the lead judge, a hulking Dralith whose dual mouths moved in perfect unison. The first test involved Semithan, a language spoken entirely through scent emissions and subtle body movements. Elise and her team had prepared, developing a device to analyze pheromone sequences and replicate their meanings. As the device whirred to life, Elise added her own touch, mimicking the judges' movements to enhance their translations. The judges nodded in approval, though one murmured, "A clever tool, but tools cannot substitute for intuition." Next came Trilvian, a tonal language whose phrases carried meaning only when harmonized with a specific pitch. Cress watched with a faint smirk as Elise struggled at first, her voice wavering as she attempted to match the tones. But then she paused, recalibrating. Drawing on her background as a musician, she found the rhythm of the language, turning its complexity into a melody. The Trilvian judge clicked its mandibles in surprise. As the tests progressed, Elise's team demonstrated the adaptability and ingenuity that had always defined humanity. While other species relied on centuries of tradition and meticulous training, humans embraced chaos, finding solutions through collaboration, creativity, and sheer determination. But Cress wasn't finished. As the final test began, she stepped forward. A true linguist does not merely translate, they converse, she said. With a wave of her hand, she summoned a hologram displaying a newly discovered alien language, its symbols jagged and pulsing with irregular rhythms. This is the language of the Kareth, discovered only weeks ago. No one has deciphered it. Let us see if your adaptability can handle the unknown. Elise felt the weight of the room's gaze, but didn't flinch. She studied the symbols, noticing patterns in their arrangement and the faint audio cues they emitted. Slowly, she pieced together their structure, her mind racing through possibilities. Minutes passed in tense silence. Then, finally, Elise spoke. The phrase reads, "Unity is found in the echoes of difference." The room erupted in murmurs. The Kareth language was newly discovered, yet she had decoded its core message. Even Kvess seemed momentarily stunned before recovering her composure. "It seems," Elise said, turning to the alien professor, "that chaos has its own kind of harmony." Kvess's crystalline form dimmed slightly, though her voice remained sharp. "This proves little. You have passed today's tests, but mastery is far beyond your grasp." Elise smiled faintly. "Then we'll keep reaching." As the session ended, Elise felt the eyes of the galaxy on her, and for the first time, she knew they were watching not with skepticism, but with curiosity. The Galactic Academy's Grand Hall was a marvel of engineering, its towering dome etched with ancient star charts from dozens of civilizations. The acoustics were perfect, designed to amplify the voices of those who stood on its central dais. Today, that dais was occupied by Elise Carter and Professor Kvess, their linguistic duel the centerpiece of the event. Rows of aliens filled the arena, a kaleidoscope of species unified by their skepticism. Could a human, with their brief history and chaotic methods, truly match the mastery of a Zolari linguist? Elise stood motionless, her confidence tempered by the enormity of the moment. Beside her, Kvess radiated authority, her crystalline form refracting the light into sharp, prismatic shards. The professor raised a limb, signaling for silence. "This duel is not merely a test of translation," Kvess announced, her voice resonating with layers of harmonic tones. "It is a demonstration of the discipline, intuition, and mastery required to navigate the galaxy's most complex languages. I will not go easy on you, Dr. Carter." Elise gave a slight nod. "I wouldn't want you to." The first challenge began. The holographic display projected a complex Alvaran poem, its recursive syntax shifting with each stanza. Kvess translated it effortlessly, her tones flowing like a symphony. The audience hummed in approval. Elise stepped forward, her pulse quickening. She studied the poem, recognizing its patterns. The Alvarans wrote poetry like fractals, each line a reflection of the whole. She adapted, weaving her translation with precision and artistry. When she finished, the hall fell silent, save for a low hum of surprise. "Adequate," Kvess said, though her tone betrayed a hint of irritation. "Let us continue." The next task was far more grueling: simultaneous interpretation. 5 alien speakers, each using a different language, began speaking at once. Their words were chaotic, overlapping like a storm of sound. Kvess took her place, translating each voice with mechanical precision, her crystalline structure pulsing in rhythm with the languages. When Elise's turn came, she closed her eyes and focused on the tones, parsing the chaos into distinct threads. Her strategy wasn't about perfect replication, it was about finding meaning within the noise. She responded to each speaker with confidence, her translations not flawless but imbued with understanding. The audience murmured in astonishment. Kvess's crystalline form flickered slightly as she stepped forward for the third challenge. This was her ace, the newly discovered language of the Kareth, an enigma even to seasoned linguists. A single phrase appeared on the hologram, its jagged symbols pulsating irregularly. "This language is untamed," Kvess said, her voice sharp. "It has no lexicon, no framework. It is pure chaos. Let us see how you fare." Kvess began, her translation precise but mechanical, lacking the nuance of cultural interpretation. The judges nodded approvingly. Elise took a deep breath. The Kareth language was like nothing she had ever seen, but she noticed a rhythm to its symbols, an echo of the Kareth's physiology, their pulsing, multi-chambered hearts and the fractal symmetry of their neural networks. She worked quickly, piecing together meaning not through rules but through intuition. Finally, she spoke. The phrase reads, "In the infinite maze, harmony finds its path." The hall erupted in a cacophony of murmurs. Even the Kareth judge, a shadowy figure shrouded in a translucent exosuit, tilted its head in apparent approval. Kvess stepped forward, her crystalline form darkened with what could only be described as frustration. "Impressive," she admitted, her tone begrudging. "But language is not merely about translation. It is about mastery. I propose one final test." A hush fell over the hall. Elise's breath caught, but she held her ground. "I'm listening." Kvess gestured, and a new hologram appeared, displaying a dense block of Rescran script, a language infamous for requiring simultaneous vocalization, gesture, and scent. "You will perform a live translation, but you must incorporate all three elements. The Rescran believe language is a symphony of the senses. Let us see if you can compose one." Elise's mind raced. This wasn't just a challenge, it was an ambush. She had studied Rescran in theory, but practical application was nearly impossible for humans. Yet as the script began to play out, she focused on the rhythm. She used her voice to mimic the tonal shifts, her hands to gesture the patterns, and her neural device to emit subtle scent markers. It wasn't perfect, but it was cohesive, a symphony in progress. When she finished, the hall was silent. Then, slowly, the Rescran judge rose and emitted a low, resonant hum, a sign of approval. Kvess's crystalline form dimmed slightly, her authority diminished. "You have done well, Dr. Carter," she said, though the words seemed forced. "Perhaps humans are not as limited as I believed." Elise met her gaze. "Perhaps language isn't about limitations at all. It's about possibilities." The hall erupted in applause, a rare show of unity among the galaxy's fractured species. As Elise stepped off the dais, she felt the weight of the moment sink in. Humanity had not just proven its worth, they had opened a door to the stars. The echoes of the Galactic Academy's applause still rang in Elise Carter's ears as she sat at her desk that evening, reviewing her notes. The thrill of the day's victory was tempered by the realization that it wasn't the end. Professor Kvess had relented, but the respect of the galaxy was still fragile. One misstep, one failure, and humanity could fall back into obscurity. The next day, Elise was summoned to a private meeting in the Academy's most prestigious hall, reserved for historic decisions and monumental debates. When she arrived, Kvess was already there, her crystalline form dimmed, her posture unusually subdued. "Elise Carter," Kvess began, her layered tones carrying an unfamiliar softness. "You've proven yourself in ways I did not anticipate. But I fear you do not yet grasp the magnitude of what you've achieved, or the challenge that remains." Elise sat down opposite the alien professor, her eyes steady. "I'm listening." Kvess gestured, and a new hologram appeared. Unlike the controlled languages they had studied, this was something far more chaotic. The symbols twisted and changed in real time, flickering between forms, as though alive. The sound accompanying them was a low, resonant hum that seemed to vibrate in Elise's chest. "This is the proto-lexicon," Kvess explained. "A living language, theorized to predate all others. It was discovered on a derelict artifact orbiting a black hole. No species has been able to decode it, not even my own." Elise leaned forward, captivated. "Why show this to me?" "Because," Kvess said, "your kind's chaotic minds may hold the key. You see connections where others see disorder. If you can unlock this language, it could reshape our understanding of galactic history and cement humanity's place in the stars." Elise studied the hologram. The proto-lexicon didn't follow any pattern she recognized. It seemed to shift like a kaleidoscope, its structure as much about motion as meaning. But there was something familiar. A rhythm, a pulse. "I'll try," Elise said. "But I'll need my team." Kvess nodded. "Do what you must." Elise and her team worked tirelessly for weeks, diving into the proto-lexicon. They employed every technique they knew, from mathematical algorithms to cultural heuristics. At first, progress was slow. The language resisted their attempts to categorize it, defying conventional logic. But then Elise noticed something extraordinary: the symbols reacted to their inputs. When they proposed a translation, the language shifted, as though acknowledging their effort. "It's alive," Elise murmured, her voice tinged with awe. It's not just a language, it's a dialogue. The team adjusted their approach, treating the proto-lexicon as a conversation rather than a code. They presented ideas, and the language responded, evolving with them. Elise spearheaded the effort, her intuition guiding them through the labyrinth of symbols and sounds. Cress observed silently, her faceted eyes fixed on Elise. The humans' methods were unlike anything she had seen. Where other species approached language with precision and rigidity, humans embraced its fluidity, its imperfections. Days turned into weeks, and finally, the proto-lexicon began to stabilize. The shifting symbols coalesced into a coherent structure, revealing fragments of meaning. Elise and her team worked feverishly, piecing together the message. "It's a record," Elise said one evening, her voice trembling with excitement. "A record of the galaxy's origins. It's not just a language, it's history." The final translation was presented in the same hall where Elise had first challenged Cress. The room was packed with dignitaries from across the galaxy, their skepticism replaced by curiosity. Elise stood before the assembly, her heart pounding. "The proto-lexicon is the voice of an ancient civilization," she began. "It speaks of unity, of a galaxy once connected by shared purpose. But it also warns of division, and of the cost of losing our common language." The room was silent as the translation played, the haunting tones of the proto-lexicon filling the air. It was a story of hope and loss, of a galaxy that had once thrived together but had fallen into fragmentation. When it ended, the chamber remained still, the weight of the message sinking in. Then, one by one, the alien dignitaries began to hum, a gesture of approval and respect. Cress stepped forward, her crystalline form glowing faintly. "You have done more than I ever thought possible, Elise Carter. You've reminded us all of what language is meant to do, to connect, to unify." Elise smiled, her voice steady. "Language isn't just a tool. It's a bridge. And humanity has always been good at building bridges." As the dignitaries rose in unison, offering their respect, Elise felt a surge of pride. Humanity had proven its worth not through dominance or conquest, but through understanding. They had shown the galaxy that chaos, when harnessed, could create harmony. For the first time, the stars felt within reach, not as a frontier, but as a community.